So let's drop the red and white pill on everything. And I mean everything. We think these are all separate events and issues to be managed separately. And I'm going to tell you they're all one thing. And I'm talking about diet, I'm talking about sex and sexuality, I'm talking about disease, both physiological and organizational. I'm talking about territory, I'm talking about population, I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about all these aspects of the human experience. And I'm telling you they are all the one thing, and they're all problematic for the same reason, and they all come from the same place. And once you understand that, see, that's the red pill. Now you're enlightened, now you know what's happening. And the blue pill is that these are separate issues, they're distinct, they all have to be managed, and there's no real reason explaining why they're so difficult. They just are. But I'm going to say there's a very specific reason why they're difficult, and they're the one thing. So if you think about it, all of these things are aspects of natural systems that in natural systems are managed inherently through the nature of that system. Now, I'm not going to explain what that is, but you just understand if you were to look at a natural system like a forest park or a savanna or an ocean or something like that, that is pretty much a kind of how natural systems operate. You would say that, oh yeah, you know what, sex and sexuality and disease and food and diet and territory and population and resources are all sort of managed within that system. There's a certain process managing them, and they serve certain functions, and there's a certain dynamic to it, And I don't need to get into describe that in this video, but we can just say that there is. But if you look at the human species, all these things are gone a bit crazy and they're difficult and they're mad. And why is that? That is because we are no longer a natural system. We used to be one. They used to be regulated in the context of that. But when we invented agriculture, due to the presence of a relatively abundant food supply, that ended. We left. The gene trait was broken. We stopped being a natural system. About 10,000 years ago or so, kind of call it the Neolithic revolution, or the origin of agriculture, basically the birth of civilization as we understand it. So that is why these things are so problematic, because they're no longer regulated as a natural system. And they're all the same thing. There are all these loose ends, things that used to be regulated with them. And that is the red pill. That explains why all these things are kind of the same thing. They're all coming from the same place, and they're all problematic for the same reason. So what's the white pill? What's the answer? Well, the answer is that now we are outside and no longer a natural system. We must regulate these things. We must take on that responsibility ourselves to consciously decide to regulate them. There's a bit more to it than that, but that's basically the gist of it. We have to say, okay, what's a good way to regulate these aspects of our species now, and figure that out. And there's the white pill. And that's the challenge, and that's the journey we've been struggling with. It's the journey we're struggling with now, trying to figure it out. And of course, there's other aspects of the nature of well-being in natural systems, and we're designed to create them, and systems inside natural systems are healthy and full of well-being, which is, some people find it a little hard to understand because there's a bit of a paradox there. But basically, we're designed to operate in a state of well-being across all these aspects. And actually, the wonderful thing about human beings is we're designed to create that well-being, so it's well within our capacity. The problem is we just need to focus on it. We need to become aware this is what we're supposed to be doing, and then get down to the task. And of course, I talk about lots of other white pills, and that basically is the fundamental task of regulating these things correctly. And that's it. And now you're enlightened, and again, this is just the completed model of the human species. It is one of the aspects of the great enlightenment of the 21st century that's about to come upon us. Like right now, nobody has a clue. Nobody I could say this to anybody, that we were once a natural system, we're not anymore, and that's what's happening, and this is the challenge. Not one person ever has a clue what I'm talking about. But hopefully over the next decade or so, it'll just become common knowledge, plain as day, obvious. And that's the journey. So, but hopefully maybe you'll be one of the first, because there's always a few early adapters. There's always a few people that are awake before everybody else. There's always a few outliers. And maybe you're watching this video tonight and you realize this dynamic, a completed model of the human species. Get curious, understand it more, and you will be one of those people that really changes the world, because it's those early adapters, those outliers, that actually create the process where everybody ultimately adopts it. But right now, nobody's aware of the completed model, and we're just in darkness. We don't realize this is why these things are happening, that all these different aspects they're coming from the same place, the same event that happened. They're all basically elements of natural systems that are no longer regulated, and it's up to us to regulate them well, and to regulate them in the context of well-being and health. which is actually what natural systems create, and we just have to learn how to do that, and that's what we're learning how to do. And that's in essential all of my videos, all of the white pill is basically discovering and explaining that. And that's a wonderful enlightenment that's going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, but the first whispers are there. But as I say, the pressure, the difficulty, the challenge, the unsustainability of not waking up to this is ever growing. So it's time, and I think let's do it. Let's all wake up together. Let's embrace this, and let's get on with the work at hand, which is helping the human species finally make the successful transition from being a natural system, which was forced through the natural processes to create well-being in its systems, to being the first system ever to break outside that and to learn how to self-regulate its well-being outside of being a natural system. And it's an interesting time. It's an interesting enlightenment. And I guess in the future, obviously right now I talk to people about this and they just have no idea what I'm saying. They can't comprehend it. It's incomprehensible, to say that the model of the human species is incomplete. But I think as always the case, give it another 10, 20 years, people will look and they will look back at us and they'll say, how could you not have seen that? It is so obvious. It is glaringly obvious. It is blaring out there that this is the case. But that's always the way of change, isn't it? But once you see it, it's obvious. But before you see it, and because it's cognitive dissonance, because it's not what everybody's saying, because it's it's an outlier perspective, as well, or many challenges why this is the case. But I think in the future they'll look back and they'll be scratching their heads and say, why did it take you so long to see that it was obvious? And and my book is there, A Completed Model of the Human Species, breaks it down. But so check it out, and if you are one of those first few people to actually realize the model of the human species is incomplete and then understand the completed model, well, hats off to you. You're one of the first few to do that. I've shared this with many, many people, and nobody yet, not one person has yet to say, oh yeah, that is right, the model is incomplete, and this completes it once we understand these dynamics. Not one person has for whatever reason, woken up to it. But I'm sure there'll be I see it, and I'm sure there'll be one more. And then the beauty when there's two, then we can collaborate to work on these problems together from this enlightened perspective.